Sähköautomiehet. Ei puhuta pakoputkista.
Welcome to Sähköautomiehet podcast. Today we'll be talking in English, or to be more specific, rally English.
And for a good reason, since our guest today isn't too fluent in Finnish, I believe. He does electric car reviews, drives the cars to the limits, is on numerous YouTube channels and podcasts. From Fort Collins, Colorado, and Out of Spec Studios, we have Kyle Connor. Welcome, Kyle.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. Excited to be on a Finnish EV podcast for the first time. This is great.
It's going to be awesome. I'm very thankful that you were able to join us.
Oh, absolutely. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Nordic countries. Got to spend quite a bit of time over there, and to be able to talk to you about electric cars in your market is fascinating to me. And hopefully I can share a little bit about electric cars in the US as well.
I'm sure you can. Could you first fill us in on what exactly do you do and what is Out of Spec?
Yeah, so I run a company called Out of Spec Studios. We're based now in Colorado. We started in North Carolina in the eastern part of the US. Because everything we do is filmed and it's video production, we could really live anywhere in the world that we wanted to. And so we decided to move the company here to the Rocky Mountains, beautiful scenery, great driving roads, very sustainably focused area. And we're so lucky to be able to live in Colorado and work out of here. It's also a strategic location for flights. We have direct flights to Europe right out of our giant airport hub here in Colorado. We can go to LA, New York, Miami, all, single one direction flights without stopover. So it's great for me. I have to travel quite a bit. And what do we do at Out of Spec? Well, we basically review cars and scooters and motorcycles and anything with wheels. But beyond just reviewing the actual product, we try to get into the lifestyle, the actual regulations behind these things, and have an influence to try and make products better. So in the case of electric bicycles, we have a channel dedicated to micromobility. We talk a lot about what laws should be surrounding e-bikes, how things should work. And so that's a topic. With electric cars, we talk a lot about charging and range and road trips and DC fast charging infrastructure and level 2 infrastructure. And so we really want to push the industry towards where we think the direction should go.
How did you actually end up here? I mean, not in our podcast, but here as Kyle Connor, the YouTube guy. And if you can take us back in time, perhaps to the time when you first drove an EV, and from there on to this point.
Wow. The first time I drove an EV was a long time ago. I don't even remember. It must have been an early Leaf at the time. I'm a car enthusiast at heart. So I'm not really an electric car enthusiast. I love driving. I love adventuring with vehicles. We call that overlanding here, where we put, off-road stuff on cars and go exploring. But I love performance as well. And so that's what captured my heart originally with cars. And then, as electric stuff started getting better and faster, I was like, whoa, that's really cool, because, not only are you not having any local emissions from the vehicle, that wasn't a main driving factor for me. It was just, I can put my foot to the floor and it's instantly spinning tires. And I'm like, this is the best. And so it was really the performance of EVs that got me excited. And I think the first time I made the click was in a 2012 Model S P85, and just, roasted the tires to 100 miles an hour, big cloud of smoke. And I'm like, this is great. And I was young back then. I mean, I'm still very young now. So this was very early on in my driving world, maybe 3 or 4 years into driving, did I really capture the love for electric. And then I've owned multiple BMW i3s and Teslas and tons of other electric cars over the years. And actually used to work for the automakers. Before I got on the media side, I worked for some companies that produce cars that you've probably heard of. The last job I had was actually with Tesla, which was really interesting. I was there for just a few years, but seemingly longer than any of my colleagues. And, I saw that, the company culture was changing. It wasn't necessarily what I was looking for, but I had a great experience there. Nothing bad to say about working for Tesla. Honestly, it was a great, very good learning experience. And I said, I'm going to go make some YouTube videos. And everyone thought I was crazy. And that's what happened. I made some YouTube videos and people started watching and I'm like, whoa, this can actually work. And it all started by making Tesla road trip videos and then expanding into other EVs and then covering combustion cars still and bicycles and motorcycles and adventures. So it's just kind of blown up in the last 5 years, I'd say.
Yeah, that was actually my first encounter with your videos, the early road trip videos with your then brand new Model 3.
Right.
Which I was waiting actually.
Oh, yeah, because we had Model 3s before you guys got them, right?
Yeah, way before, like 2 years before. Ours came on the first quarter of 2019.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yours is from 2018, I believe.
Yeah, so I had a 2000, like in order, I've had some other ones, but I had a 2017 Model S that I traded for a Model 3 rear-wheel drive in 2018, and then I got a 2019 Model 3, and that's the one that I still have today.
Let's talk more about the road trips.
Yeah. What do you want to know?
Well, I guess you made your YouTube fame partly due to filming long road trips with electric cars. And that was in the time when not everyone would believe that was possible. So where have you been with EVs?
Oh my goodness, everywhere. So there's more places we want to go. I will say in terms of easy traveling with electric cars, when you look at mainland Europe, when you look going up into Norway, and even I've actually never driven an EV in Finland, but been in the general area. And then of course, across all of North America, Canada and US and EVs, that's been a wonderful experience, but that's where the topic of our conversation is going to be shifting to. So I'm glad you brought this up. Driven across the US many times. We actually set, myself and some friends, the record, New York to Los Angeles a few times. We no longer hold that record, but this is something that will come down and down as time goes. We call that cannonballing here in the US.
Yeah, we got a question waiting about that.
Oh, great. Yeah. Happy to talk cannonball. I love it. It's a passion of mine. And, what we're working on now is actually a trip up into the Arctic Circle, not so much on the Euro side. You guys can get up there pretty easily in an EV. For us in the US, it's almost impossible right now. And only maybe 2 or 3 times has it ever been possible to happen. What we're working on is a really long adventure up the Pan American Trail. It's 15,000 miles of almost no charging options from the tip of Argentina to the tip of Alaska. And so what we're doing is we're about to leave in the next 3 weeks. We have one of those Sprinter vans, 4x4, it's a diesel, but we're going to take it on a trip with the dogs, partly for vacation, partly to map every charging opportunity along the routes that we want to go. So we'll be knocking on doors, visiting cities, talking with electric vehicle advocates in the area, trying to help build a network for us to complete this trip. And so, yeah, like you had mentioned, when we started road tripping EVs all those years ago, no one thought it was possible. And I had been road tripping EVs well before we started filming them, when there were no DC fast chargers anywhere. And that was always a fun experience, pulling into campgrounds and things like that. And now you can drive anywhere in the US without thinking about it in pretty much any car.
Well, that was pretty much my next question. How has the road tripping changed during the years? But you just gave the answer.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. So with Tesla, it's always been relatively easy, and it's only easier now. But now in the last 2 years, I would say, really the last year, you can drive anywhere with a CCS vehicle, which is, I would say, a little bit different than Europe, because in Europe, there's been such a large focus on CCS infrastructure and seeing charging stations going in everywhere. In the US, that did not happen. We didn't have anything like that. A couple little 50 kilowatts in urban stations here or there. And then Electrify America came in, as a byproduct of the Volkswagen Dieselgate that we had here, and, was basically put out this entire network that's now allowed for such high percentage of, sort of public CCS vehicle adoption. And so we're starting to see Taycans and e-trons and Polestar 2s and all of these new cars that just 2 years ago you could never even leave your city with.
Have you ever driven from East Coast to West Coast, or the Cannonball with any other EV than Tesla?
Yeah, so many times, but never on that exact Cannonball route. So for cannonballing, there's like this, you have to go from one point to one point. But I've done many trips across the country with Volkswagen ID4, Mustang Mach-E, Porsche Taycan. Actually, that's not true. We did the Cannonball in a Porsche Taycan. So yes, I have done the Cannonball.
You had the record.
Yeah. So I forgot about that. So yes, many times I've driven CCS cars across the country. Every single charging stop has a 350 kilowatt CCS plug there.
That's great because, we don't get that. They're usually like 150.
Right. And so I think that, Electrify America came in, they had to spend the money, right? They basically got fined a ton. And so the byproduct of that is we got really high power chargers off highways.
Well, in the last summer, you were in Europe for a few weeks. How was the road tripping? You were driving in a Taycan, you were driving in a Model Y, I believe, in Norway. How was it compared to the US?
Yeah, very different experience. Very different experience. So in the US, we pretty much, with a CCS vehicle today, you only use Electrify America. There's one network. So when you're looking for stations to plug into, you don't even have to use a plug share or something like this application. You just pull up their app and you can say, I'm going to go from here to wherever. Where's the next one? And there's usually just one station, which actually makes it kind of easy for road tripping, because just to give you as an example, you'll see here in the middle of the country, and I know for our listener podcast, they can't, but there's just a dot every 50 to 75 to 100 miles on these major highways. And that's the station you're going to. In Europe, it's much more scattered. There's many more charging options, but they're not necessarily in a cohesive network that's designed to get you from Berlin to Munich or Berlin to, Copenhagen or wherever you're trying to go. You're kind of going, okay, I'm going to go to this ENBV. I'm going to go to this Ionity. I'm going to go to this XYZ charger. And it requires a lot more thought. And it's actually a little bit more confusing in Europe, even though there's more chargers.
A lot more confusing, actually. Like we have 4 nationwide CCS networks here, and actually not including Tesla and not including Ionity.
Oh, wow.
So and those are like national mostly. Some are Nordic wide. There are 50 countries in Europe. And I actually drove to southern tip of Spain last summer. And there were like 10 countries in the route there and back. And if every country has 5 charging point operators, you end up with 50? You need 50 RFIDs or 50 apps, and it's a major clusterfuck. Excuse
what do
my
you
French.
guys think? No, I totally agree. So when I go to Europe, I use a plug surfing card, and this activates 60% maybe of the chargers. Not every single one, but a large percentage.
Yeah.
Is that not the case living in Finland?
The issue is that if you use the card, you pay more than you pay for diesel.
Oh yeah, it was. I can't even imagine. We had 20 different test cars during our last European trip. I think we spent 2,000 euros on charging in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and if someone in the US is listening, we pay like $10 a gallon here for fuel, and using that card, charging is more expensive.
Well, that seems like a pretty bad deal to me.
Yeah.
You guys will have to help us. So we're going to be back in Europe for the entire month of July. For maybe almost 6 weeks we'll be there, and road tripping around in a whole bunch of different cars. And the problem as tourists going over to Europe is none of the charging providers accept a US credit card. And so we can't sign up for them.
And actually, they don't accept the US phone to use in the app.
Right.
Because
Yes.
I have the same issue. I've been planning a trip to the States, and the EA app is not on European phones.
Oh, but that's easy. I'll just give you my app and then you're good. So don't worry about that.
But this, travel between continents and using EVs in the destination is not very easy if you're driving anything else than Tesla. Because with the Tesla, it's super simple. It's the same way. whether you're there or here.
Yeah. So what is in the US, Tesla is a very polarizing brand. We have half of our audience absolutely loves them and will die for them. Half of our audience won't even touch a Tesla. I'm somewhere in the middle, love the cars. I see some issues here and there. Is that a similar culture to what you have in Finland regarding Tesla, or are they just seen as the top?
It is. I feel it's exactly the same.
Very polarizing.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes a great brand that people love it or hate it. Like Apple, for instance. I think Apple is pretty much similar.
Yep. I would agree 100%. It's an interesting one to try and dissect because it's hard for us to make videos in some cases because the comment section gets crazy. I think we are generally pretty lucky because even though sometimes I'm critical of Tesla, I still own the cars, have owned the cars, have worked for the company, and definitely respect everything they're doing. And so I think we're in a good position for that. But overall, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to cover Tesla. So what do you guys do for the podcast? How did this start up and what cars? Because obviously I can't listen to it. I don't understand Finnish. So you have to tell me a little bit about the podcast.
Well, we started 1.5 years ago. And then I was driving a Model S from 2014, S85. And Janne was driving the same car he still has now, Model S3. Yes, Model 3 Performance, sorry. And Janne made this funny road trip from southern tip of Finland to northeast tip of Finland. And after that trip, I made an interview about Janne and his trip. And after that interview, we were talking at the parking lot. And I told Janne that there is no Finnish language podcast about EVs. So I think we should make one. And we thought about that for a while and decided, let's go for it.
That's great.
Actually, before that, there was like in the Tesla Club Finland Facebook group, there was this challenge that you should visit all the superchargers in Finland. And that that was like a 900-mile trip.
Yep.
And Antti was the first one to do it. And he made videos while driving it with his friend, and they were like cooking meals in the superchargers because the S85 charges so slow. And I was looking at that and pulling my hair. How can they drive so slowly? They should come out at exactly 0% and charge maybe to 50 and go to the next one. And he's doing it all wrong. So I had to do it after him. And then there was like talking about it because I beat his time by several hours.
So this is similar to like in the US, our Cannonball Run Challenge. It's the Finnish Supercharger Challenge.
Yes. Yeah, but nowadays it's way harder because they made superchargers up north. So the trip is like 2,000 miles. It's crazy.
Let's go set a new record.
Welcome.
2,000 miles in the US is just a trip to the grocery store. That's easy.
Give me a short answer. In your opinion, what makes a good road tripping EV?
Okay, 3 things.
Yeah.
Easy. I'll keep it nice and short and sweet. You need a good route planner, which tells you where to charge. And it needs to be a route planner optimized for speed. This would be one that allows you to get down to 0 to 3% on plug-in, to ride the charging curve, and to tell you when to leave where you have just enough to make it to the next one. So 1, route planning. 2, plug-in charge. Well, actually, before we get to that, battery preconditioning, which means the car knows we're getting to a DC fast charger. We are going to warm up the battery pack or cool it down in the summertime to get the fastest possible charging on the plug-in. And then 3, plug-in charge capability. You walk up, plug the handle in, walk away. And so those are the 3 things that make a road trip great. If you want a fast road trip, you need serious charging speeds too, but that goes without saying.
That sounds just like Janne's answer. Exactly the same.
Awesome. That's great. Well, we're all thinking on the same wavelength.
Yeah, and this is like episode number 93. So we've been raving about this for a long time now.
And, and I'm glad.
I just drove the BMW i4 M50 last weekend, and it annoyed me so much that the car is in many ways great, but it cannot do route planning. It says that you need to charge to get to your destination, and then it proposes to charge 2 kilometers from you when you're with full battery.
Yep. It's so dumb. I don't know why this is hard for people, because Volkswagen Group in the Taycan, at least here in the US, has an amazing route planner.
Yes.
The Taycan it gets you, I can say, get me to a charger at 3%. It gets me there at 3%. The battery is warm and it has plug-in charge. And so that's a great example of it being possible. Why is it hard for everyone else to figure this out?
I totally agree.
Tesla gets it. Tesla's the best. They have the best route planner by far.
By far, that is true.
The supercharger network here in Finland is so bad.
Really?
Yeah. There's like huge gaps, like 200-mile or 300-mile gaps between chargers.
Really?
And many V2s.
So,
wow.
Yeah. Like there are 3 V3 locations in Finland.
But your cars have the CCS port on them, right?
Yeah, that makes it easy.
Yeah.
But Teslas, they don't preheat when you go to a charger unless you can navigate to a charger. And there's only one national network that has its chargers on the Tesla navigation.
Oh, that's good information.
Yeah, and here in Finland, it's like minus 30 Celsius in the winter.
Yep, it gets freezing. Absolutely.
Yeah, so if you can't preheat, you're charging super slow. But if you can actually get the maximum 250 at any temperature.
Yeah.
At any temperature, like minus 30.
So road tripping at winter time in Finland with ID4 GTX is not so fun experience.
Right. Well, I can imagine, because that car doesn't have aggressive preheating. I just made a video on this topic a week ago or so. And one of the things a lot of our commenters had asked for is a manual preconditioning button that says warm it up. And so there's only 2 cars that I know of that you can do this. It's the Hummer EV and the Lucid Air are the
There's
2.
There's a third car.
Oh, what is it?
Aria.
Aria, really?
Yeah.
No way.
That's what they say.
Okay, I have not been in Aria other than a pre-production one.
Neither have we, but that's what they say, that Nissan has made it.
Oh, well, that would be amazing news because the Nissan needs all the help they can get right now. I don't think that car will have any route planning. And so, manual preconditioning would be perfect.
Have to ask from the king of road tripping. What's your first choice? What car would you choose for a really long road trip?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. I'm really curious about this Lucid Air. I got to drive it, but I have not taken it on a road trip yet. That would be interesting. But to me, I actually like to charge. So I like to pull over, charge at the fastest possible rates, and then get out. It gives you a goal to get to. The stretches aren't ever too long, but the speeds are still high. And so, my go-to road tripper is just a Taycan every time. We're going again to Europe. We're getting a Taycan because I know the charging curve that has great cooling. It can handle high speed, high charging through Germany. And that's what I love. In the US, we have some issues with the supercharger network, specifically where we live, because they're all older version 2s. And so I would like to say the new Model S long range, which I love that car. But it's actually faster to drive a Taycan here in Colorado than it would be a Tesla. And so, that's my go-to. What about you guys? What do you think?
Well, in Finland, I would definitely take the Model 3 long range.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I would.
Oh, I'm in the EQS camp because it's so comfortable. It's like you're in a pillow.
Absolutely, it is comfortable. That's for sure.
And it's not the fastest. We know that, but it's not super slow either.
EQS is awesome. I think that car doesn't need so much performance credentials. That's all about covering miles and silence and comfort. I love that. The pillows and the headrest are wonderful.
Yeah. In our test drive, I said that I could marry the pillow.
Yeah.
It was like the nicest pillow ever.
Yes, they are so nice. And then you get the massaging seats on. I love the EQS. I think EQS SUV is going to be a really popular option here in the US. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. My only issue in the US is we have probably much higher speeds than you guys drive consistently. I mean, we'll be doing, 150 kilometers per hour for 2,000 miles.
Yeah.
And so we need, a car that's relatively efficient at high speeds throughout the middle of the country and high charging rate. And EQS is 400 volt. So it's only, 200 kilowatt peak. If I can get another 70 to 100 kilowatts on top of that, it actually does decrease the time measurably to get to the destination. But if you're not in a rush, EQS all day, and big range on that car, big range.
Yeah, I would love to test the Lucid Air.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
Do you guys have any plans to come to the US anytime? Because perhaps if you do, we could help arrange some stuff so you could drive some cars.
Maybe I'm coming in June, but I think you're on your long road trip.
Yep. Well, at least for the first 2 weeks of June, we'll be in Alaska, but then I think we'll be back for a week or two and then we go to Europe.
Yeah. Before we take a little break about the EV Cannonball records, you had held the record twice with a Tesla. Was it a Model 3?
Yep. Long range rear wheel drive.
And the next one with the Taycan. Tell us about how grueling is it to drive like 48 hours straight, even with a
Not
2
bad.
or 3 guy crew?
Yeah, not bad. It's like it's super easy because you're getting out and stopping at chargers. You get to walk around. You're constantly thinking about optimizing your charging speed, your charging rate. It's very exciting because you're balancing police avoidance. You're balancing high speed, so it's not like you're just cruising. We're doing 140 miles an hour, 150 miles an hour, really hauling ass. Technical term. And just having we are on it. We got binoculars out the windshield. It's legit. We got sensors for everything. And with the Taycan specifically, we had massive charging issues with the networks. And it really slowed us down. If we ran a Taycan today, we could beat the current record, which is a Model S, no problem. And so that would be a really interesting thing. The thing is, for me, would that show anyone anything? No. I really want to run a Lucid Air or see someone do it. Part of becoming a little bit bigger on YouTube now and having more of a following, we need to be probably a bit more careful than we used to be in terms of driving quickly across the country. And maybe that's not the right image for us at this stage in growing the company. And so I hope someone runs a Lucid Air because that will just be the smackdown.
Yeah. Well, let's take a little break and you can listen some EV-related commercials in Finnish. Back in short time.
Kivierotvakuuttaa.fi. Meidät saat kiinni myös vakuutusten vaihon jälkeen.
Meiltä latauslaitteet ja kaapelit, joita itse käyttäisimme. Koodilla Sähköautomiehet saat tilauksellesi ilmaisen toimituksen ja samalla tuot Sähköautomiehet podcastin tekemistä. Laturille.shop.
Que belo dia e parking.fi.
So Kyle, I hope you enjoyed the commercials. Now we can talk about the cars.
Great. I did not understand a word of any of it.
In the last year or so, we have seen so many EVs come to market. How does the EV market look to you?
Oh, scattered, fragmented, and confused, I would say. It's really not cohesive. With combustion cars, if we look at in the US, we have like a Volkswagen Tiguan, a Honda CR-V, Toyota RAV4, Kia Seltos, or the whatever. All of these cars are pretty much the same, Mazda CX-5, etc. And there's almost no difference between them. The horsepower all within 20 horsepower of each other. The price are all with $1,000 of each other. And we've kind of locked in on what a small SUV should be, or people want. And that's just driven by what people are buying. In the EV world, we might have a car that goes 200 miles on a charge versus a car that goes 300 miles on a charge. competing in the same category, or we have one that charges at 240 kilowatts, like an Ioniq 5, competing directly against an ID4 that only charges at 135. And so we have these massive disparities and spreads where it makes it really difficult for the consumer to actually buy a car right now. Because if you look in a similar pricing category, it's not like, oh, which shape do you like? Which brand do you like? Like, these are things that will measurably impact your ownership experience. And so it's pretty wild, in my opinion, right now. Is it the same in Europe?
Yes, it is.
Well, we get the same cars actually.
Yep.
Yeah. They're all global cars. So, well, you have some, we don't. We have some, you don't. But in general, those are the cars. The Ioniq 5s and the EV6s and the ID4s, Mustang Mach-E, Model 3, Model Y. We all get the same cars.
Yep. So, from my opinion, it's just very hard to make a purchasing decision, especially for those who don't understand what these numbers mean. And so, Bjorn does this 1,000-kilometer challenge, which I think is a really good representative test of a long distance and charging range rate. So it factors in range and charging. I'd like to develop something like that here in the US. The problem is we have the manufacturers in the US don't understand what we do. Like, they don't even understand what we're talking about. And so they don't necessarily want us piling all the miles on their cars. And so mileage is a big concern with our loans when we get test cars from manufacturers, and they're learning and they're adapting. And some, like Porsche, they understand what we do 100%. They're friends of mine. They're fans. They watch our stuff. They say, put 10,000 miles on the car, do whatever you have to do. And then you get to Mercedes and they're like, send us an email if you need to do more than 500 miles. I'm like, well, really? That's a charge and a half. That's nothing. So this is the most difficult part right now.
Well, what kind of car types are we missing?
Ooh, good question. What car types are we missing? I mean, we're making what everyone's buying. The market's going to small SUVs in general, and there's a plethora of options from Model Y, Mach-E, ID4, Ioniq 5, EV6, you name it. We got it all. Aria is coming, although I don't know how competitive that will be. It'll be, that's the market we need to hit, so we got it. Pickup trucks in the US are coming, and they are coming strong, and people are excited. I've been lucky enough to drive a Rivian now for about 5,000 miles and have really fallen in love with that truck, the usability of it. F-150 Lightning's coming. Hummer EV just came, although that's more of a style thing than it is for work. And so, there's a lot of markets left of utility. We have no delivery vans in the US that are electric right now. Sort of the fleet usage is at zero. And so we have the e-Transit coming, or maybe just starting deliveries now, but
it's like a 60 kilowatt hour battery.
Yeah, it's nothing great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like 100-mile range. So, and it's expensive. So it's like, for the F-150 Lightning with a much bigger battery and a much longer range is cheaper than the e-Transit.
Yeah, that's confusing.
Yes.
I think we're missing several things. We're missing fast wagons. I would love to have a Volvo V60 with the same powertrain as the Polestar 2.
Oh, I would buy that instantly.
Yeah, same here. We don't have cabriolets, although they are not, open tops are not a thing in Finland.
Oh yeah, because I own an electric convertible smart car and love it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and also I think the pickup trucks, that's not a thing in Finland either.
Right.
Most importantly, we need something that is spacious, usable for the families, and under 30K. And we don't have that either.
Right. The cost, EVs are very expensive right now. There's no way around it. And, I think there's a lot of toxicity in Twitter and other places where people are like, they view driving a gas car as bad. And I don't necessarily disagree for a lot of cases, but some people just can't afford an EV. Like, it's just not possible. And, in the US, the Nissan Leaf is probably the cheapest affordable EV. But then you're dealing with CHAdeMO, which you can't get around anymore. And then you're dealing with overheating issues, because it gets really hot here. And so when you start thinking about what's the cheapest usable electric car, you're north of $40,000. You're into Model 3 base, you're into Ioniq 5 base, EV6, and that's the floor. ID4 is pretty good as well. But yeah, would love to see a fast wagon, 100%. Give me a V60 or V90 with the Polestar brakes, all the good stuff as electric. I would buy that, and that would be my driver, my daily, for sure.
Definitely. Not many EV YouTubers are really driving enthusiasts. Like, I would say that Bjorn isn't a driving enthusiast. He's into EVs. He's like a super EV nerd, but not a gearhead, like you'd say. Who go to twisty back roads or rip the cars on track. But I know that you do, and you make a lot of videos about those. But are there really EVs for the car enthusiast?
No.
None?
No. Never driven one.
Not even the Taycan?
No. Never driven one that makes me want to go for a drive, that I get really excited about. We're spoiled because I review combustion cars too, right? So if you get me a new 911 or a new 718 GT4, like the GT4 RS or something, you get this amazing soundtrack behind you, a great manual transmission in some cases, and you're working to get the car down the road. And that to me is the most fun. As a motoring enthusiast, I want to be sawing at the wheel, grabbing gears, getting it right on the edge, feeling like I'm about to die. That's when it's the best. In an electric car, they are insanely fast. They are insanely competent. By far, probably some of the fastest things on a back road. But I've never gotten the thrill or the excitement to say, I'm going to wake up early this morning and go for a drive in the mountains. And to me, I think it might or may not ever happen. I don't know. But I think I'll always have to own something with a manual transmission in the garage as long as I live. I think we drive electric every day. We do 99% of our driving, sort of combustion free. I'm 100% for that. But I just think, like people ride horses for fun, you'll see me with an old Morgan somewhere ripping through the hills, for forever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but Taycan's definitely the closest.
Yeah, and I was sort of hoping the i4 would be too, but
it's not.
It wasn't. It's too fat.
Right. The i4 is good. Like, if you were to describe how the car handles, to a general audience, which is what I have to do for a living, it's very capable. It's competent. You can slide it. You can do things. But then that's the steering's not so great. And then you have to turn traction control off. Otherwise, it limits power with steering input. And so it's fat. Yeah,
that was my issue in a twisty road, that it's just too heavy, and you can feel it's heavy. And I would say that the Model 3 performance is closer to the enthusiast car than i4.
You're so right. The Model 3 performance is an amazing car for the money. It has to be the best performance car for the money on the market anywhere in the world.
Well, last summer, when you came to Europe, your goal was to drive as many EVs that are not available in the US. What cars would you take there if you could?
Oh, I fell in love with the ID3. I love the ID3. Yes, it's so trendy and happy, and it's like a Golf, and I love Volkswagen Golfs. And so we don't have anything like that in the US. We have no small hatchback that's electric, other than maybe Ioniq 5, but that's kind of big. And so, for me, it was, I want an ID3R if they ever make that.
Well, I had ID3, and 6 months ago, I switched to ID4 GTX. And it's a good car, but I think it's a little bit boring. But in a good way.
Very. Yeah. It's boring in all the best ways. That's the point of that car. It's transportation that's designed to not get in your way. It's not designed to be exciting. It's just meant to get you there without thinking about the car. And it does that.
Yeah, it does.
There's also a number of cars that you have and we don't. If you could do a little summary for us, because we don't get our hands on those. starting with the newest Palladium Tesla Model S and X.
Yes, the Palladium. I forgot what it was called.
And the yoke.
Yeah, so I've driven all the versions now, except for Model X Plaid. I've only driven the Model X dual motor. And I have to say, the build quality on these cars, so much better. The design of Model S still is one of the best looking EVs ever. That is an amazing looking car. The interior refresh is wonderful. This big 17-inch touchscreen, amazing sound system. Now with some updates in the car, the active noise canceling makes it really quiet on the highway. Huge range. Honestly, almost no complaints. Almost actually bought a Plaid a few weeks ago. There was one that was in inventory that came up. I missed it by like 5 minutes, but just it's so insane how great that car is for just around town everyday driving. I mean, no one has been able to match Tesla's connected functions, from logging your data with Teslafy or a service like this, to having a great app on your phone that instantly connects, to then having Spotify built in, and it just works. And so, yeah, love the new Model S, love the new Model X, and they really are the best they've ever been.
Well, give some short comments on yoke.
Yoke is stupid.
We totally agree.
Yeah, that is a dumb decision that I would change after getting my car. My friend Ryan actually created a steering wheel and turn signal and shifter retrofit. And so that would be the first thing I do, is take the yoke out, throw it in the trash can, put a circular steering wheel on it, and then it'd be perfect.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, lately you've been testing the Rivian R1T. I was actually watching a video from you today. So tell about Rivian. That's the car I'm very interested.
Yeah. Rivian, it feels like Tesla back in 2013. They are very receptive to comments. They are excited. People are excited. Do you remember, like, back when anytime Tesla would have an announcement, we would all get so excited. What do they do? It's like that with Rivian. And they're building this culture and this community around electric adventure. They're not saying their truck is a work truck, and they're not pitching it to landscapers or to people that are working in home building. They're pitching it to, honestly, people like me who live in the mountains, who want to go camping and to do it nicely.
Perfect.
And it's so good. It's so good.
What about the Lucid Air? How would you compare it to other cars in the same price range, like the EQS or the faster ones, or maybe the Model S long range?
Yeah, well, the Lucid Air is tough because I haven't spent as much time as I would like with that car. And I've driven it, made some videos with it, and it feels like it's engineered extremely well. Everything on that car is intentional. You know, sometimes we drive cars and you're like, oh, there's this issue, there's that issue, and maybe we're finding these things out and the automakers let it go through. Everything the Lucid Air does feels like it was designed to do it. And so I'm really impressed with their engineering, their range, their charging. It all seems very good. The big question for me, though, is software, service, and support. I will tell you that Lucid, just in my experience, has been reluctant to loan us a car for reviews. They letting our colleagues, our competitors all have the car. And I think, you know, they know what we're going to do with it. My understanding is they're waiting for some software updates before they give us the car. My perception is like, hey, the car's on sale. Like, we need to review this thing. Like, let us road trip it. Let us drive it across the country. If it's bad, it's bad, but that's our job to share. So I think they have the bones there. I'm not sure they're as open as Rivian seems to be to comments. And I'm not sure if they're really doing a great job on building a culture around the brand at the moment. Very much nothing like Rivian, night and day. I mean, Rivian knows how to get their consumers, users, investors excited. People are just mad at Lucid. like I have friends who are investors. I don't own any automaker stock because I review the cars, but I have friends that do. And they're like, we don't know what's going on. They're not being communicative. We're a little bit concerned. and then Peter came out with that amazing video showcasing electric vehicle battery technology at a high level, which I thought was a great way to get the company out in front of people and to share their engineering lead. I think they just need to do a little bit better job at communications and branding, but the car seems good. I just haven't spent enough time with it.
Well, talking about trucks, I think those EV trucks are really nice, and we don't have trucks in Finland so much.
Really? Not even combustion, like small pickup trucks and things?
Well, we have some, but they are not popular.
Like Ford Ranger, smaller than F-150.
Yep.
But when the Tesla Cybertruck was announced, right after the event, I reserved one.
Oh, really?
And I'm not holding my breath to get one ever. But I'm interested in the Rivian and also the Ford F-150.
Yep.
But what about the Hummer EV?
Oh my goodness. I don't think the Hummer EV could fit through the entrance gates to Finland.
Yeah,
I just don't.
I think that might be the case, yes.
It's hot. I mean, in the US, very rarely does a car feel big. And in parking lots, this car feels big. Just pulling into charging stations with it, I'm like squeezing next to a bolt and I have to like climb out the window because the door can't even open. It's crazy. It's crazy. But what's amazing about it is how well built it feels. It's, in Model X, when you launch them, you get this front end shimmy, you get this like axle shaft wobble.
Yeah.
The Hummer EV makes way more power. It's way heavier. And they had trucks launching for 10 days for all the media to go at all day, every day for 10 days straight, full throttle launches. And they felt perfect after that. It is amazing how well engineered this thing is from a reliability standpoint of sustained performance. The battery feels under stress. The drivetrain feels like you can do anything you want to it. You could drive it through a building. You probably wouldn't even notice. It's pretty amazing and kind of fun in all the wrong ways. I do like it. I would never own one, but I do like it.
It is maybe the first silly EV because we don't have enough silly cars. We have over-engineered and boring EVs and quite a lot of them, but not enough silly cars.
I totally agree. When you're designing an EV, people, want to see who's going to buy the car, right? But with some combustion stuff, we've had exuberant cars, either track focused things or little weird stuff. It is finally the first kind of pointless electric car, and I like that.
So, what about the F-150? Have you driven it?
I have not driven it, but I have ridden in it. I drive it actually next week. And it's just going to be so exciting. We've been talking about these exuberant EVs going crazy. Ford is going to take a very straight and narrow path. They are going to make sure that this is going to accomplish its job well, but it's not going to do any silly stuff. And I think that's what we need for this truck. Everyone has an F-150 in the US. And I mean, like at least 10% of the cars. I mean, it just seems like there's so many F-150s. And there's so many people waiting for an electric version that this is going to be a competent, useful device. Now, I do worry about an F-150 or any electric truck where we live out in the Midwest. Wyoming is the next town or the next state above us, and we're the last town in Colorado. There's nothing up there. There's no chargers. There's a lot of wind. There's a lot of harsh winters. And, I still think combustion is going to be what they drive for a long time to come, because there's not much money even in putting charging stations there. But for the majority of inner city use, especially for fleets, the F-150 Lightning is going to be amazing.
Okay, before we go to audience questions, I have one more question. Lately, you've been testing these advanced driver assistance systems, or ADAS. Have you had any surprises there?
Yeah, a few surprises. First off, it was surprising that no one else is making videos about driver assistance in a standardized challenge. And so I'm glad we came up with this and we're doing it. The second is the cars we thought were going to do really well didn't do so well, like Hyundai's highway driving assist, which I thought was really great, didn't do so well. In our first test, we're going to run a highway drive assist 2 on a high trim Ioniq 5 pretty soon. And the Rivian is the best we've ever run there from a brand new automaker.
Yeah, definitely interesting.
Yeah, so it'll be cool. We're going to run all the Teslas next week. We're going to do the radar, the vision only, a car with FSD beta. We're going to do it all. And that will be once we get the Teslas, then I think because that's the system I'm most comfortable with autopilot, then we'll kind of know how everything else falls. But like a Honda Civic did extremely well. And then the Porsche Taycan didn't do so great. So we're just seeing these massive variances in this in the results here.
All right. Then a few questions from our audience. What do you think are the biggest obstacles regarding EV adoption?
Well, the cars are good. There's two, I would say. There's education. There's, do people even want to learn how to use an electric car and put a charging station in at home and understand how public networks work? And then the infrastructure to support it, not necessarily from a can we power the stations? It's really how do we cost effectively put high power charging everywhere? And the answer is in the US, it's not possible to have a profitable DC fast charging station north of 100 kilowatts, or very rarely possible. And so that's the biggest issue I see right now. It's all infrastructure related. The cars they all drive well enough where anyone could buy it and be happy with it.
If you had to choose, would you pick more range, faster charging, or more chargers?
Depends on where I'm going. The faster charging is where I want to lean to, because I like we had spoken about, I love to charge. It's so much fun finding a new station, getting it hooked up, snap the picture, throw it on Twitter. I love charging. I don't like charging for a long time though. I just like it enough where I can do what I need to do and then get out of there. Because I just think it's so much fun maxing out what a battery pack can do, both from a discharging perspective and fast driving and from a charging perspective. But yeah, I think more chargers probably today, but with the exception where they would have to be high power DC chargers. If that's not the case, then faster charging in the car.
Have you ever heard about this Finnish company called Kempower?
Yes, I'm meeting with them next week.
Cool.
Excellent.
Where?
Yeah. Well, just virtually, because I want to do some things with them. I want to go visit their headquarters on our European trip coming up. Maybe you guys would like to tag along too, if we can arrange that.
Absolutely. I live 1 kilometer from the factory.
Oh, great. Well, then I'll see you in July. That'll be awesome.
Excellent.
Okay, Janne, next question.
The US market is very heavily dominated by Tesla, like 75% in the first quarter, whereas in Europe it's in the 20 or 30% market share. Does it make it more difficult to build a CCS network in the US because it's so Tesla dominated? Are there enough cars?
Yes. The problem is the more cars, the harder it is to be profitable with CCS in general. There's never been a third-party company installing a cohesive network of chargers in the US. It just hasn't happened. The only one is Electrify America, and that is funded because of Dieselgate. And so we've yet to see the free market get into the DC fast charging space. We don't have national networks. We don't have anything like that. We have a EV Go network, but it's not a traveling network. They have a couple in hubs here and there, but they don't have anything to get you from one hub to another using their own chargers. And so yep, it's the more cars. I don't know what the solution is. I don't think having a higher market share for CCS. The only thing that would do would be to force the government in expanding the chargers faster. But in the US, it's maybe a little bit different than Europe. Our government, when they get involved, nothing good comes of it. And so, it's just like they'll put in right now, the government funding stuff, they're putting in 50 or 62 kilowatt chargers everywhere because they don't understand. And it's like, that's not useful to anyone. And then they're not repairing the chargers that are already broken. It's only for new chargers. And then once this pocket of money runs out, who's going to maintain any of this stuff? And so we have massive issues here in the US when it comes to infrastructure. And I'm not saying I'm an expert on the economics of it. I would like to learn more. And that's where I'm going to focus my coverage on. There's solutions around reducing demand charges, things that we deal with here. But I it's not good, basically.
I think over here the key is in the retail chains, because when you have retail chains that are competing for the customers, for the EV drivers. When there's enough mass, then they install chargers to the stores. And that's how you build a nationwide network, because there's a nationwide retail chain.
Yep, and that's very much what we'll probably see in the US. The problem is you guys are much more concentrated than we are. So for a retail chain to put in chargers, they need to maybe, instead of where they would put 50 in Finland, just an example, they would need 500 of in the US.
Yeah.
Or they could just do a region of the US. But then if they just do a region, that doesn't help you travel long distances.
Yeah.
And so I agree, retail chains, absolutely. That is a competitive advantage if you can install chargers. The electricity costs are just insane right now, though.
Okay, my last question to you, Kyle. Traditionally, like in the combustion world, there's been a big difference in the cars made and used and sold in Europe and the cars sold in the US. But now with the EVs, we have global cars. How do you see this going forward?
Yeah, I think global platforms are the future. If you're designing a new vehicle from the ground up, you have to, at least at this point in time, automakers are putting a ton of money into platforms, and these are global modular platforms that can be sold in every market around the world is the goal. What that means is we're losing out on market specific interesting traits. Maybe it means Europe gets less hatchbacks and wagons. Maybe it means the US gets some that we didn't want anyway. And so, this trend is going to continue. It's the best way to financially guarantee a solid product, because it was never that expensive to develop a combustion car before. You put in a good engine, you put in a good, chassis, and then you're good to go. With an EV, you need to talk about where is your battery supply coming from? How is it going to interact with the charging? And it just requires so much more money, where the model ranges will shrink and the platform sharing will increase, and we'll all be driving the same cars with the exception of a few here or there within just 10 years, something like that.
Okay, I still have one question about the charging infrastructure.
Yeah.
Tesla seems to be really opening the supercharge network, and that is starting from here, Europe. If the network opens up in the US, and if there is a CCS/Tesla adapter that everyone can charge everywhere, will it change the game in the US?
I don't know what to expect. There's going to be so many good things and so many bad things to come from it. In the US, it's hard to just generalize the whole country, because if we look at where we live in Colorado, it would be very easy to open the supercharger network. There's no lines. You only see one or two cars at them. People charge at home, just maybe people come vacation from time to time, but that won't be an issue here. If you go to Southern California or Las Vegas, the stations are full during the day, all day. And, then you're starting to add in a whole new crowd of people that not only today drive a CCS vehicle, but that will then go and buy one because now they can use the supercharger network. So you're going to see the best thing for every other automaker is for Tesla to open up, because they'll sell way more cars, because everyone wants to use the Tesla network. It's renowned for being the most reliable. It's going to lead to some major troubles, and it's also going to open up the world for a lot of people. So I don't know how I feel about it. I actually just made a video on this yesterday. It hasn't gone live yet. And the way I ended it was, I have no idea what to think in the US. In Europe, it makes a lot of sense. After traveling through Europe and many countries now, you see almost more CCS cars than Tesla. Whereas here in the US, it's 10 Teslas for every one non-Tesla EV.
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But I hate it as a Tesla owner.
Right.
And I hate it even more when someone will park a Mustang Mach-E sideways because the charge port is in the wrong location and the cable is too short, and then they will take up 3 stalls.
Totally agree. And I made the same point. I'm like, when I'm in my Tesla, nobody come over here. The other day, though, I was in the Rivian and I was in Moab, Utah, and they have one 50 kilowatt charger for the entire metropolitan area that was full. Couldn't charge there because a Bolt was at 90%, of course. And then there's an empty supercharger just sitting right there. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that would be so nice. So my opinion changes depending on what I'm driving.
Yeah. Excellent. Hey, thanks so much, Kyle. Thanks for coming.
Thank you guys. This has been wonderful.
Best of luck with Out of Spec.
Thank you. And if you guys ever want to make some finished videos for Out of Spec, let us know. We'd love to have some Euro stuff going on. So keep that in mind.
Definitely.
Maybe we'll figure out something.
Yeah, great. Well, hopefully I'll see you all in July when I'm over there. I think that would be really great. And, to see ChemPower. And I've never actually been, I've been to Finland. I've never driven an EV in Finland. So can't wait to see what we bring over there. I don't know what we'll drive up. Maybe the ID Buzz. We'll see.
We have to figure out something quirky. You already tried the Twizy, so we have to figure out something else.
Oh, but I can never get enough time with a Twizy. I love them.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Have a great one.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.
So if you want to listen Sähköautomiehet podcast in the future in Finnish language, you can find us from Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, all major podcast services. And also we are in social media.
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And you can also visit our website, which is at sähköautomiehet.com.
Maybe you should spell that.
Oh, too difficult.
And we would also like to thank our patrons. Jussi Jaurala is our main sponsor. Thank you, Jussi. And also thank you to following patrons. Harri Jokinen, Harri Ruuttila, Jimi Voutilainen, John-Erik Sivula, Martti Saksala, Ari Laakso, Heikki Silvennoinen, Janne Tolvanen, Jukka Alander, Jussi Hiatala, Matti Jouhkimo, Miika Haapala, Miikka Karhuluoma, Miikka Tuomola, Mika Keski-Heikkilä, Mika Reinikka, Mikko Kaltiokallio, Olli Vähätalo, Oskar Karsson, Petteri Uusitalo, Sauli ja Samuel Juslin, Tatu Laine, Timo Ruokolainen and Vikke Niskanen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we'll be back next week, perhaps with the Finnish language again.
Yes, please. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sähköautomiehet. Ei puhuta pakoputkista.